think of virtual reality, your mind might immediately think of video games and expensive hardware. Some of you may think of virtual reality as nothing more than entertainment, or as a tool for enterprise. Many may just think of Mark Zuckerberg and his accomplishments in the industry. However, in the past few years, virtual reality has become something much greater than anything we could have imagined. With Zuck's new Meta rebrand, and the failing attempt at creating a centralized metaverse, many people think that virtual reality is dying. However, the term metaverse is not owned or created by Zuckerberg. The official definition of the word is, quote, a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. Mark Zuckerberg is essentially trying to reinvent the wheel with his rebrand. What many investors and consumers don't realize is that there are already many metaverses that exist currently, with thriving cultures and booming player counts. And the biggest of them all is VRchat. VRchat is a virtual reality game in which the main purpose is to socialize with other users, hence the name. Released in 2014 and gaining massive popularity over time, VRchat allows users to explore different worlds which are almost all user-generated, which means that everything you see was created by players like you. The game allows users to upload their own avatars, worlds, and enables people to have almost complete creative freedom. As long as the content follows the guidelines of VRchat, almost anything can be found here.
The main draw of it for me was just the fact that it was a social talking app that wasn't geared towards 5-year-olds like Rec Room is, and I would say I'm sorry for saying that, but frankly I'm not.
When I first got into VRchat, I was looking on YouTube, and I saw this person, Hey on V, and she made VRchat videos, and I would watch them and be like, wow, that is really cool. Oh my god, VR, I want to do that. I've always wanted to do that. So I basically guilt tripped my parents to the point where they got me a headset for Christmas, and I was overjoyed. Now for the culture, I'd say it's a bunch of loony folks. If you can think of a person, you can find them in VRchat.
Majority of the people are nice, but then you got those servers that just have the people that are showing straight up NSFW stuff, and no one cares because they have that person already blocked. But then you go into the complete other side, and it's just crisp, clean perfection.
Just seeing the cool things that a VR headset can do with a small little box to generate all of this. To be honest, it's actually really cool.
Players in VRchat have already developed their own culture and a sort of sub-society, as if the game itself was some kind of parallel world to our own. Players have their own norms and behaviors that you usually wouldn't see in the real world, similar to how different countries in the real world have different customs and languages. The player base is made up of many different subclasses of people, which are differentiated via the behavior and avatar of the user.
There's definitely, you can see that there's different groups of people. There's really young kids who love, memes and dressing up, being really loud sometimes, and
A lot of what's on here is user-generated content, so whatever someone wants on VRchat, with the exception of having rules in the way, they can make pretty much whatever they want. So you're going to see everything you can think of. There's worlds dedicated to probably anything you can imagine. It's just the fact that there's nothing getting in the way of doing whatever you want to do, whatever interests you. You can find people like that.
If I'm being honest, there are some good people. I've made a lot of good friends on here. There are some nice people that'll give you some tips, like when I first joined, there are people that are willing to help, and then there's other people that are mean. It's an up and down situation, especially in this world right here. There are just more types of people. There's every type of person here. Toxic, nice, happy, sad. You'll find happy and sad people everywhere. I mean, my experience in VRchat has been more of a bipolar kind of experience, if I'm being honest.
If there's a large group of people that you do not know, you stay quiet. Well, if it's like a few friends, you'll go ahead. If not, you just don't talk at all. You just use the little chat box on this area.
Right, so just like real life, basically. Like you wouldn't go in real one. You wouldn't go up to a big group of people and start talking to them either.
I wouldn't be talking about the things I talk about with my friends around just randoms on the street. But I would go towards my friends and have the conversations I have with them.
In each lobby, there's going to be a different group of people, and I ran into a lot of different groups of people. There's this one time where I met this extremely transphobic little who went on this huge half-an-hour argument about how trans people are stupid and just don't exist, and how...
What is widely considered to be a normal user in VRchat is a user that uses a pretty basic avatar, either from a popular avatar world or a character from a popular genre. These people are usually friendly and act mostly in ways that would be considered normal for a real person. Although, the norm is still very diverse, with many different types of people spanning across it. As described by Reddit user Drawlfire, the culture is global and brings in people from all around the world. Users in VRchat are also more self-expressive than they would be in the real world, often talking about things with strangers that they don't feel comfortable talking about with their families or other friends. There's looser respect for personal space, and people usually have less of a filter for profanity as well as vulnerability. It's a sense of anonymity that you get from wearing a body that isn't your own.
Regardless, it's just the sheer amount of physical contact that you don't get outside of VRchat. If you walk up to someone on the street and try and hug them, they're either A, gonna punch you, or B, they're probably gonna scream and think you're...
I think people dress up in really wacky, avatars and things that would obviously look very out of place in real life look perfectly normal here. Like you'll see like a hideous deformed monster next to like a cat girl or something like that. And that's perfectly normal. And you'll see people morphing and shifting into different avatars all the time, which obviously you don't really see that in real life either. The freedoms of VR let people, do that, and I think it's really interesting, like avatars as self-expression, where in real life you're just you and you can't really change that no matter how much you try, but in VR you can kind of be anything you want, and there's a certain sort of like freedom to that.
Toxicity, racism, what else?
Sexism.
Yeah, this specific world gets the worst of it, the worst types of people.
100%.
If we're being completely honest.
Personal space is basically invisible. You can go up to anyone and do anything. Literally pull out a giant sword, cut someone's head off. That is not something you would do in real life. I'd say it's much more aggressive and...
When you have an environment where almost complete creative freedom is allowed, there's going to be some people who abuse that freedom. And when that abuse is recognized by developers, the whole community can suffer. Players in VRchat used to be able to modify their game to their liking, often implementing quality of life mods created by the community. Recently, the developers have implemented an anti-cheat software, Easy Anti-Cheat, which effectively nuked all mods and caused an uproar in the community.
Recently, VRchat, the devs behind VRchat made a huge change to the game. A lot of the players who play this often have mods. They've modded their game so it has mostly things like quality of life changes. VRchat has said, you don't get mods anymore, for no reason. Now, the idea was to get rid of all the bad people, right? People who had like crasher avatars, who would steal avatars. What they didn't realize was that they were instead screwing all their good players over. I know there were some for like deaf people, the game would automatically caption for them, they had a mod for that. There were some to improve things like frame rate. If I remember correctly, it was because Easy Anti-Cheat basically paid them to use it. So the fact that they were willing to screw over their player base for money is concerning.
There's a lot of racist people, even if they mean it or not. Crashers, hackers maybe?
Almost half the community got banned because of all the crap that was going on. I've been sexually harassed, and thank God I don't have phantom sense, because I would have been sexually harassed. It's not good.
When I was in a random server with a friend and someone showed a pedophile's IP address, like everything, and it had information on how this guy got to these basic 12-year-olds, and it was all the info you could find, just this group of like 5 hackers that got this guy.
I think VRchat dev team is doing a horrible job at managing its community, its platform. Implementing Easy Anti-Cheat was a fix to most of the crashing problem. It was extremely lazy. Instead of removing modding in general and maybe upgrading their security on when it comes to uploading avatars with too many particles. I think there should be more of a limit on that so people can't make crashes as easily. They should have taken more time to consider upping their defense on the game itself.
Complete freedom can be utilized in dangerous and strange ways. If you let it, it can take away what makes you human and blur the line between reality and fantasy. As the rabbit hole of VRchat's player base deepens, it becomes clear that some dedicated players become shells of their former selves, spending almost all their time inside the game. These players display unusual, somewhat inhuman behavior, such as staring at mirrors for hours.
Every chance they get, they will talk about how they want to kill themselves and are sitting in like the corner of the room, not socializing, and doing what's called mirror dwelling. Mirror dwellers are weird. Mirror dwellers are a specific class itself, like e-boy, e-girl, cuddling in front of a mirror. So what I understand, being in VR is a cool experience, right? I mean, look at your surroundings. You can be basically whatever someone makes. That'll make you see a lot of cool stuff. So what I understand is a lot of people enjoy looking at themselves in the mirror as their avatars because they're cool looking, you know? It's basically like eye candy. So it stimulates the brain and like gives them dopamine to stare at these like cool looking, satisfying avatars in the mirror for hours on end, just watching and looking at it.
There's multiple ways it can actually be like this. First off, it's because they're fantasizing about wanting to be the avatar they are. That's one reason. 2, they got nothing better to do and they're lonely. 3, it's because they're with a loved one or an online girlfriend and they're fantasizing about each other in public.
Usually there'll be maybe a group of them sitting, looking at themselves in a mirror sometimes. They'll be talking amongst each other and, I'll say something that's, relevant to the conversation just to try and, get myself out there. But everybody ignores me and that's that's fine. But then for other people, they include me in the conversation and, we have a nice discussion. And I think it just depends on where you are and who you're talking to.
I have a mirror behind me. I would not sit in front of a mirror for hours on end in real life. If you go to pretty much any public world and it has a mirror, typically you're going to find these people called mirror dwellers. I'm sure you know about it. They sit in front of a mirror, right? And they just, if they have other friends, they'll talk, but they'll like never interact with the rest of the world. Like these chips here on the table, unless they're next to the mirror, they're probably never going to touch these. They only play this game to sit in front of a mirror. And I mean, nothing wrong with that, more power to them, but you can't deny the fact that it's kind of strange. And the fact that this is a social game, the fact that there's a whole, it's not like a small stereotype either, it's a huge stereotype of players that will just sit in front of a mirror. You wouldn't do that in real life. So that's one of those things.
Everyone here is mostly nice, you just gotta find the right servers.
Threats from outside games, such as games, I hesitate to call them, but platforms like Horizon Worlds by Meta, which is the scrubbed down corporate wasteland that it is, and it is the antithesis of what VRchat is, because where VRchat is completely community driven, and it has its fair share of problems, but it's also problems that the community could resolve. Get something like Horizon Worlds, which is threatening it, and just taking investors and being so much bigger. You have the problem where you either have the community-driven map that all the players love, but investors can't get behind, or you go the other route where you have the soulless corporate side. Everyone looks the same, they have no legs, and you, quite frankly, I'd like to get within 4 feet of people.
So, I've been playing VRchat for a really long time, and I have to say, VRchat has been one of the worst and the best things to ever happen to me. I have met such incredible people who have changed my life forever, who have helped me, who have hurt me. It's pretty cool and it's pretty bad. VRchat is like a second life to me. The social aspect of VRchat I think is pretty cool.
VRchat, when you're looking into the right places, it can be great. I mostly just hang out with friends. I don't really go into too many public worlds. If you've got a group of friends and say like you're all long distance, this is a great place to be if you all have VR headsets. But at the same time, VRchat has a lot of issues that do need to be ironed out. Beyond just the whole thing I brought up with mods and children, there's a lot of other more NSFW things like groomings and whatnot that can happen if you are in the wrong places. Get on here, have some fun, hang out. There's nothing wrong with that, but you do need to be careful. It's like alcohol. It's great, but make sure you're being careful.
I think VRchat has huge potential to be something really amazing in the future if the developers don't mess up too bad with the game. And I think this is a great space they've created, a great way to meet new people. I'm really excited that I have access to this platform and I can go on here and just do whatever I want basically. And I'm excited for what will become of it in the future.